did you get your Spotify Wrap?
Yeah.
My son lives on Spotify. I think he had like 40,000 minutes on Spotify over the year. And he says December 1st is my favorite holiday because he gets his Spotify Wrap. And so he's coming to all of us. And I listen to Spotify, I think 2,700 minutes, not much. My wife and I have gotten on. Have you ever heard of Need to Breathe?
No.
They are a kind of a folk rock Christian band. They're not really Christian, but they have some undertones. My wife, she is in the 0.5% fan of Need to Breathe.
Wow.
Worldwide. So
they should send her a Christmas card.
That's what she was saying. She's like, are they going to know? Am I the stalker fan? I don't know. Hey everyone, welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I am David Baxter, back from a brief holiday. I am joined by my co-host, Gary Voigt. You doing all right, man?
That's right. Co-host status now.
That's right. I've upgraded you because of your mad skills in hosting. So we're back after the break. We took our first week off ever. I say ever. What has it been? 12 weeks? So long. But it was weird, I got to say, to not do one last Friday. It did
strange. Feel a little awkward.
Yeah. So even though I was still fat and happy from Thanksgiving, we did take the week off. But I missed you so much.
I missed you too.
Yeah. All right. So I wanted to talk to you about Block. Have you heard this? Block.
Yeah, like Legos.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about Legos now because that's very relevant to our audience. No, we are talking about Square, who has renamed themselves Block. And officially, I'm going to try to get this correct. Officially, it says the change to Block acknowledges the company's growth. Since its start in 2009, the company has added Cash App, Tidal, and TBD as businesses, and the name change creates room for further growth. Block is an overarching ecosystem of many businesses united by their purpose of economic empowerment and serves many people, individuals, artists, fans, developers, and sellers.
In other words, we're taking in money and we're totally going to be a blockchain service, but we're not telling you we're going to be a blockchain service. Pay no attention to the fact that our company name is Block.
That's where I feel like there's a big hole in this statement. I mean, everyone knows. So Jack Dorsey, he's the CEO. He was recently the CEO. He was the founder of Twitter, and then he was the CEO. He left, and then he came back, and now he left again. And then like 2 days later, Square changes their name. This is not an accident.
No.
But I think, and Jack Dorsey has said many, many times that he is super excited and wants to do more in the blockchain / crypto / NFT world. He names his big finance company Block and yet doesn't say anything about blockchain. I think that's disingenuous. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm reading too much into that.
What is the TBD 159 or 64 thing company?
I don't really know what TBD is. The only thing I can tell you that when you go to their Twitter profile, which is kind of ironic, is they mention Bitcoin in their subject, or they have a hashtag Bitcoin underneath them. So I can't tell you exactly. Obviously, it's somewhat under wraps, but it is a real company name, which is strange.
Well, it seems on brand.
I guess. And then they have Spiral, which is their new one. It used to be called Square Crypto. It is now called Spiral. They're just naming everything. But that is their Bitcoin branch.
I know you can buy and use crypto and Bitcoin on Cash App already.
Which I got to say, I think we've talked about this before. I do not understand why everyone thinks suddenly I'm going to use Bitcoin as a
currency,
transactional currency. It is so volatile and the transaction fees are so ridiculous. Why in the world? No one uses it. It is an investment class gizmo, but they're still hoping that at some point someone's going to buy a pizza with it. And I'm like, it's $60,000 per Bitcoin. So your pizza is like 0.0001. Anyway, I digress.
I did see an article recently that I guess a hacker logged into some blockchain network, and it might have been Bitcoin, and stole like $120 million worth of Bitcoin, and then
Yeah,
just
that
peaced
just
out.
happened.
Yeah.
And that happens not uncommon. I mean, it's the thing that's scary about crypto in general is it's not real, right? By definition, it is not real. And
Yeah.
so it literally exists in the digital space. And I guess you could say that about all currency. It's not as though I have my $500 in the bank and it's literally waiting for me there, right? I know that, but there's something very scary about this as opposed to, well, one, I guess it's because if someone did steal my money, the FDIC will give it back. The government
You're
will
talking
give
about
me
normal currency,
normal
not
money.
cryptocurrency. Yeah.
If I get it stolen from a bank, the government has said we will give it back up to like $100,000 or something like that. Crypto has none of that. And so there are basically bank robberies, which is what you mentioned earlier. For lack of a better term, that's what it is. They're robbing it and stealing people's stuff. And it's, anyway, I don't really want to dive too deep into crypto in general. I just think Block is very clearly aiming at that big target.
Even the aesthetic of the branding is right in line.
Yeah.
The current trends for crypto, NFT, that whole.
If you haven't
market.
seen the logo, it's a square. It's a cube that's been twisted on itself. I likened it to what's called a hypercube, which is kind of a science fiction-y thing. It's a 4-dimensional cube. If you ever look that up, they're wild. It's just a strange concept of if you saw a cube in the 4th dimension, it folds in on itself. It's wild. It's a science thing. But that kind of reminds me of a very colorful hypercube, which I'm sure is not what they were going for. But what I think is really funny, have you seen, so if you go to Square's or Block's new homepage, there's not much to it.
No, it's just basically download their graphics package for, the media.
But they have a leadership page, and they turned all of the leaders into squares.
That is pretty cool. And then I think they released something where you could do that on Twitter now or whatever. You just put your own profile picture into that square and it bends your forehead over the edge.
So yeah, there's a guy who made this, and so people started putting their cat pictures and all this stuff into these strange squares. I don't know. I think it's silly looking, especially like Jack Dorsey. It's like he lost his forehead. I don't get it. Like if you I'm looking at their page now. They have Mike Brock, who is the lead of that TBD guy, and he's got a forehead, and so does the CFO, and but Jack Dorsey like has no forehead, and so it looks silly. Anyway.
I do like the URL of .xyz. That's pretty cool.
You think that's cool?
It reminds me of like something skateboarding would do. That's pretty cool.
To me, XYZ is the one you buy when you can't get anything else. But I'm also on their site, and their logo bends and moves.
Yeah,
that's pretty fun.
Their branding is pretty cool for where it is, and it's super trendy right now. But
yeah, I mean this. I think of you every time I see a logo like this, and I'm like, how do you put that on a T-shirt? How do you put that in a? And now I'm looking at it, and they've got their 16 pixel little guy. They've got them in there. They got rid of the gradients, but they're there. They know what they're doing. But I don't know. I think this is interesting. We have Meta now. We have Block now. Everybody's moving into this new world, and it's interesting. It's like collusion, but not. It's like everybody says, okay, we're going to now do the metaverse, and we're going to build products for that. And blockchain is right in line with that. And they're all trying to work together to build this new future. I am curious if anything comes of it.
It is exciting. It's interesting. And it's also a little scary.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in 10 years, and it blows my kids' mind. So my daughter was born in 2008. The iPhone came out in 2007. And you think how much the world has changed in that period of time.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years, everything is different. And I think that this is me putting on my little pointed hat, but I think it's going to start going out. Everything changes in 5 years because everything's just so much faster now. And I'm just saying in 5 years, 10 years from now, we're going to be in a different world. We're all going to be wearing weird goggles and there's going to be a lot of weird stuff that comes from the unintended consequences is kind of where I'm going with that. But
We'll have YouTube celebrities doing reverse mortgage commercials through blockchain.
Oh man, it's like replacing. I'm trying to think who does the
Tom
reverse
Selleck.
mortgage. Tom Selleck, yes. All the guys who I grew up with now are doing the reverse mortgage and retirement commercials.
Yep.
So it's going to be PewDiePie selling you a reverse mortgage. I love it. I want to talk about a topic that comes up pretty regularly when talking to startups, and that is don't hire a developer, which is ironic for me to say that. But here's the scenario. So you have a startup, and that startup is almost guaranteed, I'd say 80 to 90% chance, is a two-sided market. And what that means is, because almost all startups are in some way or shape or form. Think of Airbnb, good example. You have two sides. You have people who have a home they would like to rent, and you have people who would like to rent it. That is the two-sided market. The startup is the guy in the middle who connects those two sides. That is almost every startup you can think of. And that's very common. We worked once with a three-sided market, and boy, that is tough.
What was the third side? Were they?
So in that one, and I can say this because it's been many years. So that one, they were a recruiting company. And the idea was you had recruiters and you had companies that needed to hire. And then their third side was the influencers, people who knew people who could connect recruiters. And so they were marketing the guy in the middle to try to build up a relationship to connect those two sides. So it was a three-sided market. That was really complicated. They pivoted massively and went off and did other things, but that was one of their ideas. So a two-sided market is very, very common. Again, most things that you think of are two-sided markets. Now, Facebook, I guess, would be an example that's not a two-sided market. So they're not all. You can do, and I challenge startups regularly, you can do a two-sided market for absolutely free and find out if your idea is worth a darn. That is my thing. And here's how you do that. So here's an example of a two-sided market. This is an idea that came out at a hackathon years ago. I don't think it turned into anything, so I'm not breaking any rules here. But you are a photographer and you want to connect to people on vacation who want to have great photos of their vacation. Okay, that is an example. So for instance, you're going to New York and you're taking your family and you want really good pictures of your family in New York. You don't know any photographers, so this app would connect you to photographers who are there who would do this and offer you a package. There's your two-sided market, right?
That seems a little weird.
I don't know if that ever went anywhere. It was an idea that came out. I think it's so niche that it never had any legs.
Yeah.
But it's a good example of a two-sided market. So if I were to say, okay, that's my idea, I want to build this company. So someone would come to me and they say, here's my idea. I want some tech. I want to build a website that will connect these photographers to these vacationers. And I want to see if this works. And I would say, no, you should not build that. Not because it's a bad idea. That's not my job to tell you it's a bad idea. My job is to say, you're not ready for that. And so what I would tell them is you do not need me to validate this idea for you. What you need is to validate the idea for yourself. And you can do that with a spreadsheet and your phone, right? Because all you're doing in a two-sided market is connecting people. So if you go as the founder, you're going to, blood, sweat, and tears time, you find a bunch of photographers who are interested. Like say you pick New York City. Okay, find 20 photographers in New York City who are willing, they're getting paid, so they would be so open to this, right? That's easy.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can definitely find an easy list to just pull email addresses from.
You could throw a dart and hit 10 photographers in New York City. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So you've got them. So you call them, you make a relationship with 20 photographers, however many you want, whatever you want to consider a quorum. And then you find 20 people who are going on vacation to New York. These would probably be friends and family because you would need to know this is kind of personal. But you can probably find 5 people who are going to New York, and you can probably convince them that they should try this out, right? And so you call the photographer, you call the interested party who's going on vacation, and you connect them manually, right? Hey, this is Joe. He's a great photographer. Here's Betty. She's going on vacation. You guys talk.
Okay.
And at the end of that, you have a conversation afterwards to see how did that conversation go? How can I make it better?
This went in a different direction. At first, when you said with just a phone and a spreadsheet, I'm wondering, are you using some sort of like app building software that's just a super easy thing to make like a prototype on your phone and then you show it to people, but you actually mean
Literally
calling
no code.
people and literally connecting to them to talk to each other.
Yeah, because
okay.
To get a good app is going to cost a lot of money. It just is. We've talked about that in previous episodes. Things cost a lot of money. And I don't want you to spend that money until you're ready to do it. And if your idea isn't validated, don't do it. It's that simple. Don't spend your money on an idea that you don't know if it has. Because I promise you, if your app is any worth a darn, you're going to get very busy with your phone calls and spreadsheets, right? Because word of mouth will spread. Hey, Gary knows, he's got this idea and he's connecting photographers, and I bet he can help you when you go off to Austin on your next vacation. There's a really cool idea, right? And so you start getting word of mouth passes and you start validating, and you can really refine and learn a ton about your idea. You can learn about, after they connect, hey, how did that work out for you, Mr. Photographer or Miss Photographer? Hey, Miss Vacationer, how did that work for you? And you learn and you get more data and more ideas as to how this market really will work.
And you could definitely find places. A good pivot point would be to maybe change the idea a little bit and go a slightly different direction that might be more promising.
Yeah. I mean, if the idea is trash, you're going to know it pretty fast.
Yeah.
If the idea is good, you're going to start getting some inklings that it's good. But you also might find, and what you're basically saying is you might find that an idea that's buried inside of your idea is actually the one that's worth something.
Say, for instance, instead of connecting the travelers with a photographer, connect the travelers with a place that'll rent like high quality cameras and lenses out for your vacation. Like, it might be easier to try to be the photographer, yourself. If there might be a bigger audience for that instead of actually paying a photographer.
That's possible. I mean, again, the validation of the cheesy idea. I know you're dying to validate this and make it run.
No, I'm just trying to give an example. I'm just trying to give an example of a pivot where that your original concept had some legs, just not in the same direction that you perceived from the beginning.
That's fair. And I think it's important to just keep an open mind. And you can do that. Here's the beauty of this advice. You can pivot all day long and it costs you nothing.
Yep.
As soon as you start investing in building your idea, every change, every, pivot we keep saying that word over and over again, but every time you change your mind, it costs you money. But at this stage, it costs you nothing.
And all you're doing is learning.
You're just learning, and you can get so much out of this if you actually do it. And I will tell you, we've given this advice, I can't even tell you how many times, many times. How many people do it? I probably can put on one hand. And that's because, and that tells me the story. If you're not willing to do that, you're not going to get through the slog. You're not going to get through the tough times because it requires work. And if this kind of work, the cold calling, because you're reaching out to a photographer in this example that you don't know, if this makes you uncomfortable, man, startup life is not for you. Just go get a job and enjoy your life because this ain't your thing. Because if you don't want to cold call somebody to make your idea work.
Yeah. If you can't handle the entry level position, you probably can't handle the CEO position.
That's fair. Well, and that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think one of the things that we found when I did a lot of hackathons in Raleigh, there used to be these cool weekend hackathons that people would pitch an idea and they would, what are they called? Startup weekends. There was a company that would come here. It was really neat. I was a mentor at some.
Oh, I do remember those. Yeah, you used to go be a speaker at those.
Yeah, I would be a coach for the ideas, and I loved it. It's a shame they went away. But they basically, someone would come and say, "Hey, I've got an idea," and I want to go. They pitch it, and then if they got enough developers and designers who would come and help them over the weekend to build a prototype, then they would know whether or not they wanted to take it. And one of the things I thought people learned more than anything was I've had this idea in my head for a year, and when I threw it out there, it went nowhere. That's very valuable. That is probably more value than I got a little bit of inkling and I need to sink in 6 months to a year of my life to make it, then find out that it's a crap idea.
Right.
But I love those hackathons for exactly that. It's like, oh man, I had this idea. It didn't go anywhere. And now I know that, and I'm going to move on with my life and go do something else. That's very cathartic.
Now, out of the people that did this little process, this exercise, did any of them come back to you with that idea and you have helped them kind of become successful?
Yeah. And here's the next step of that. So let's say you are this photographer, this fictional photography company, and you go and do that, and you've connected them, and man, people are excited about your idea. That, yeah, man, I love this idea. I'm going to go to Cancun next year, and I want a photographer. Okay, great. And you're connecting people, and it's going really well. And you can also play with pricing there as well, to see, as the middleman, how much cut you can take. But let's say that goes well. So the next step is what I would call either the low code environment. Now that means something different nowadays, but I've been using that term for a while. So what I mean by that is, let's create something that's a lot of sizzle, but not a lot of substance. And what I mean by that is, let's give a very professional looking front door, a good looking website that people can come to, the photographers can come to, and the vacationers can come to and learn about your service. But when they sign up, it really just sends you an email and you do it manually behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
You're still very heavily manual. It's not automated. It's basically a fancy contact form that maybe fills in a spreadsheet for you, and that's as far as it goes. But then you manually call them and you connect them and you still do your spreadsheet thing. That's the next thing. That can be as cheap as $10,000. Right? For a highly designed, I mean, I want a lot of sizzle, right? I want this to look like it's a quality establishment.
Professional, polished.
You've got the logo, you've got everything, but it's $10,000, not $50,000, because nothing's automated.
Right.
That is what I would call the low code version. And that is your next step. And you can say, okay, I've got this. I've got a much more professional thing. I could do some marketing around it. I can bring people to my stuff and see if it goes to the next step. Is it earning revenue? Is it doing this, that, and the other? Do I want to take the next step, which would be the full-blown app? And now you need real money. But that's the next step. So yes, that's what we always recommend. Let's do the low-code version. If that works, 6 months later, come back to me. We'll build you the real one. It's the stepping stone. Very few people do this. And I don't know why. They would rather just say, hey, I've got $50,000. Let's go build an app. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
It's amazing how much you want to push away money coming to you.
It is funny. Yeah. And I told you about that in an earlier thing. We had that come to Jesus moment when we decided we wanted to help more than make money.
Right.
And that's when we got really opinionated, saying, no, I don't want your money. I want your money when you're ready for us, and you're not ready for us. And so, we lost clients. They vanished. My guess is they never got billed. Every once in a while we would find they went with someone else who did take their money and then promptly died, right? Because they weren't ready, but they had this pile of money. It was burning a hole in their pocket. They hired someone who just took it. 6 months later, they're gone. I hate that story.
Well, it could be just, instead of taking your advice for what it is and your way of trying to help them, they might have just been hurt, thinking that you said their idea was not worth it yet.
Yeah. And I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, maybe I've thought it. I'll be honest. I've thought it. Yeah, your idea is not very good. It's not my job, because I am not an expert at your industry. Whatever you're excited about, I don't know that world, right. Most likely. If it's video games, I've got a good idea. But I don't know your world. And so it's not my place to tell you your idea is trash. What I can tell you, your implementation of your idea is trash. That is my job. But the actual idea, I don't weigh in. They always ask, and I'm like, it's not my place, right? If you've got a good idea for law firms and it's going to change the way law is practiced in this country, I can't answer whether or not that's true, right? That's just, I don't know anything about it. And so I rarely tell people their idea is trash, but I will tell you that your plan to attack your idea is trash. That is my job. That is my world. And I'm not shy about that at all.
That's part of the transparency that we try to keep in place.
It's if I can't have an open conversation with you about your idea and how I'm going to implement it, we're not going to get along. We're just not. If the egos are that big on both sides, I've got a massive ego. I get it. If your ego can't take the fact that I think your idea, your implementation ideas are not good, we're going to have conflicts. And at the end of the day, you're going to insist on being the software designer,
Yep.
And when you insist upon that, you're going to get an inferior app. It's no different than having an architect building your house and you say, you can have opinions, but when the architect says, dude, you need a load-bearing wall here,
Or your second floor is going to crash down.
You've got to trust his expertise, right?
Right.
If you, it's the same thing. If I tell you, man, you need to build X this way, or you need to, don't forget to and build in some marketing hooks, like into Active Campaign or whatever. Don't forget to build that. Yes, it's more money, but you need to do it or you're not going to be able to get anywhere with this. Or, man, if you do it this way, you're going to completely block this whole future section of stuff. If we have clients, well, I had clients. They typically don't last long, if I'm being honest. We've had clients who insisted that they were going to do it their way. And that the friction there gets really ugly. Because at that point, if you really want to be a software designer, you should go find a company that's just going to build the spec and not ask you any question.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There's a lot of people who do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what we do. That's not what I would recommend, because you need someone with an opinion so that your idea is tried by fire. Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right? That's an old saying. And there's a reason, when you have two ideas rubbing against each other, you get a better product. You just do. I do that with my team. Here's how I'd like to do it. The developers will say, no, you need to develop it this way because this is what they do. Same with you in design. Hey, I think it should be orange. You're like, you're an idiot. Orange is ugly. No, it needs to be this, right? Every step of the chain, that friction should be there to create a better product. So if you're looking for a yes man, you're going to end up with a bad product. I'm just going to say it. There it is. Bad product. I'm just going to say it. Bam. Dropping my mic.
When there is an uncomfortable feeling knowing that you're building something that's not going to be beneficial for the client, but you're doing it anyway because they're giving you money and telling you, you work for me, here's the money, do what I ask. There's no way that's going to turn out well, because you could tell.
We've had clients in the past, yes, do exactly that, where here's our advice. And sometimes, I mean, in the end, they are clients. And so I'm going to do what you say, right? I'm going to push, I'm going to push, and then I'm going to let you win because you're the client. I don't have a problem with that. But when they take away our agency is when we start to have real issues, is when they start saying your job is easy, get out of the way, you're just a pixel pusher. That's where things get ugly. That's really rare. I don't want to think that that's common at all. We've had that maybe 2 times in almost 9 years. It's really rare. But it does happen where someone comes in swinging that I'm the be all end all and you don't know I know more than you do. Whew, that's a hard client, man.
Well, it seems like over the years, typically your approach and your strategies have weeded out those, ideas or clients from going that far through the process.
Yeah. I mean, I'm opinionated from day one.
But you're helpful too.
I want to be helpful. If you don't see me as helpful, you probably won't hire me. I think that's the easiest way. I want to be helpful. I want to build your idea. I really want you to succeed. And everyone on the team really wants you to succeed. And if you don't like that, those opinions coming at you and stuff like that, you're gonna pull yourself out of this conversation real quick, which is fine. That's how it should be. We've gone off into another random tangent here, but I think it's worth talking about. I want to bring it back though in full circle though, because I do think if you walk away from this podcast and have learned nothing from this episode except for one thing, it is don't rush into development. Take your time, validate your idea, figure out who you want to be when you grow up, and do that for free. Don't do that for $50,000 and then realize you did it wrong.
If someone has an idea, wants to validate it, but doesn't have an idea of how to actually start that validation for free, is that something that you'd be willing to consult with them about?
Yeah, I mean, but it's literally, I would, at this point, you could almost say, listen to this podcast because, I mean, we just walked through it, right? It does, again, if you have a two-sided market, which most likely you do, it's always the same. It's exactly what we described earlier. I don't think there's really any need to consult. Sure, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. It takes me 30 minutes. We'll have a good time.
Connect party A with party B. Do the hard work.
Be the guy in the middle. That's what your app is going to be in the end of the day.
Right.
Your app is a glorified middleman in most of these cases. And so you just just be that middleman. It's great. And when you are that, you're going to learn so much. It's worth every minute you spend on that, and it costs you nothing.
All right, so I was looking around for gift ideas for you, because since you have everything, I thought the only way to step this game up was to get you something custom.
You're calling me a snob?
I'm just poking fun.
I know.
So instead of just a regular ordinary Xbox, I saw this video by Marques Browning. Did you ever watch MKBHD?
Yes, I do. He is on my subscription list.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. And he is showing off the new Xbox Gucci collab. Just a small price tag of $10,000 for a Gucci branded Xbox in a suitcase.
So is the Xbox made of leather?
No. But
well,
the suitcase it comes in is. It has embossed Gucci logos all over the shell of the Xbox itself.
Now that sounds pretty cool. Not $10,000 cool.
It's got a blue and a red stripe down the controllers.
Are they at least the upgraded Elite controllers, or are they the regular controllers?
I'm out of my league on that one. I don't know.
I'm betting they're the regular. Because to me, it's like I'm paying $10,000 and you can't even throw the Elites in. Come on. Because like Xbox sells regular controllers that come with the Xbox, but then there's also the Elites that are like $200. And they have all these cool interchangeable parts and metal, and they're really cool.
Yeah, kind of like your mechanical keyboards.
It's very similar. Similar.
Where Marques takes this video is he branches off into the collabs between brands and how now fashion brands and tech companies are starting to collab more. And in some cases it makes sense, and in some cases it's just ridiculous like this.
I assume they didn't make a whole lot of these.
No, it's limited. They only made 100 of them.
So $10,000 times 100.
My first instinct was their niche market is SoundCloud rappers.
SoundCloud. Okay.
Just for the clout, just to, show it off in their TikTok about the Xbox with the Gucci brand.
This reminds me, I saw a similar video. It wasn't Marques Brownlee, but it was it was Hermes. I say that wrong every time.
I say Hermes.
Hermes, fair. I'm sure we won't get sued for that. They made a Bugatti, a car, and it was wrapped in their leather.
Wow.
And it was, this rich dude in Dubai had it and was walking through. They made 3 of them, I think.
That is basically just publicity. They're
for sure.
That's just to get the word out.
Well, it was crazy. So it might not have been a Bugatti. It could have been a Pagani. It was one of those redonkulous $1 million plus cars.
Right.
And it was you talk about a cool collab. I'm off on the rails here, but they made it whatever their color is. Like Hermes has a brown. I think it was Hermes. It could be not them, but they had a specific color that is their color. It's a brown. So they made the whole car that color, and all of the accents were that color.
And then UPS put a sticker on it and used it as their delivery vehicle.
Perfect. That's right. So, but they also made custom luggage, like 9 bags that would hide in the different cubbies.
Oh, wow.
It was when you talk about a collab, it was really well done. However, that car would normally, I think it was a $2 million car. It was $3 million just for that one. So it was an extra $1 million for that collab. I was like, wow.
Yeah, most of these tech and fashion collabs are just for the hype.
But it works, right?
Media.
It is work. Stupid. A Gucci Xbox is stupid. However, this is now a YouTuber who gets millions and millions of views every week, and
Correct.
Our 5 viewers are now listeners are now talking about an Xbox Gucci collab.
It's
so
exactly how advertising on the internet goes. You just make something wild, something that's going to catch people's attention, whether good or bad, and it'll get out there and spread so fast that the amount of money you spent making the product is dwarfed with how much exposure you're getting, free advertising exposure.
Seems to me, though, at the end of the day, I'm assuming they'll sell all 100 of these. So that's $1 million.
Even if they don't, there's still plenty of advertising that went out for both Xbox and Gucci.
Crazy. Okay. It's neat. They've been doing these kinds of things. What's interesting to me, though, is from what you're describing, the Gucci, except for the embossed whatevers, is basically the box.
Yeah, it's basically a piece of
what you're going to throw away, right?
I don't think anybody's going to throw away Gucci luggage. If anything, they're going to sell it.
That's just so weird. Yeah, I mean, I guess who's going to buy that? I'm going to walk around with my Gucci bag with a big Xbox logo on it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a big bright green text on the standard Gucci, like tan and brown.
I personally think Gucci everything is super ugly. My kids, though, in that generation, Gucci is almost like it means cool. I don't know why. My kids talk about, oh, that's so Gucci. I'm like, what?
Well, it's just Gucci and Louis Vuitton. Those two high-end fashion brands have become synonymous with, music icons and just pop culture, as saying like someone from our era would think of Ferrari and Lamborghini as like, wow, that's amazing. So
it's just interesting. I look at Gucci, I'm like, that's so ugly, but that's a $2,000 sweater.
Right.
Whatever. All right. On that note, I think we're going to wrap this one up. We're going to try to stay at our 30-minute mark, but we have been woefully inadequate recently. You guys went way over on your last one.
And it paid off, buddy.
It paid off. That's right. I guess I shouldn't say maybe we need to go to an hour. I don't know if I have that in me.
Don't forget to ask for questions. Since we do have like 24 downloads now, there's probably 5 people that have questions.
Okay. So we'll wrap this up. Don't forget to send us questions. We don't have one. We are going to, I keep saying this every week, but we're going to start pushing these on YouTube. We have one up there, but we're going to keep doing that. And we want to get more questions. We don't have any this week, unfortunately, but that's still a big push. So don't forget to email us if you have any questions. hello@thebigpixel.net. We would love to hear from you, and we will answer any that come in. All righty. I think I'm done. Gary, you got anything else?
If you find us on Spotify, go ahead and just subscribe.
Fair enough. Or Apple Podcasts. Don't be a Spotify snob. I'm totally fine with that. You can subscribe on either.
Nah, just Spotify.
Just Spotify.
No, I'm joking.